All right, I'm going to get things started. So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Susan Soulsby. I'm the Senior Engagement Lead for the Simpler Better Funding Programme, which is delivering UKRI's new funding service. Thanks for joining us for our webinar on accepting and managing awards on the funding service. And we'll be giving you a bit of an update on our progress and the information you need to know to prepare for managing awards. I'm joined by a few members of the team. Let me just move on, who are going to be on hand. They're sort of a bit behind the scenes with their cameras turned off for the moment, but they'll be on hand to help with the questions as those come through from you, and we'll try and answer as many as we can. I also have two co-presenters. So I have Maz Cook, who is the product owner for our award functionality on the service, and Tom Davey, who is the product designer. On the agenda for today, I will be providing you with an update and the information about how organisations can prepare and set up accounts, administrator accounts on TFS. Then Maz is going to give details about managing awards, so going through accepting, starting, raising change requests, and the final expenditure statements. Then Tom's going to actually provide a demonstration and walk you through the actual, like how it looks and feels on the service, and sort of show you that journey as we go through. We'll then finish off with a quick summary of some of the recent feedback that we've had from research office staff who've been part of the pilots that we've been running on awards. And then hopefully we should have plenty of time for our Q&A. If you see, it might be at the bottom of your screen, might be at the top, depends on sort of how it's set up, but there's a button which is the Q&A function. So if you have questions throughout the webinar, please do raise them using that, and then it will help us to manage them, and we could we'll either answer live or answer it verbally at the end. If yeah, and then we'll send out a summary of the Q&A to attendees, as well as a copy of the slide deck as soon as we can after the webinar. But please bear in mind that might take about a week or so. We'll also put a recording of the webinar on our YouTube channel, and I'll share the link later in case you haven't already got that. Okay, so hopefully this isn't too unfamiliar for you, but UKRI is creating a new funding service that's easy to use and supports everyone involved in research funding. It's been designed and built and tested in an iterative way, which means that many of our external stakeholders, such as yourselves, would have experienced that gradual development over the last few years, as you've seen functionality be introduced and enhanced over time. I'm pleased to say that the funding service is now the default service for all Research Council funding opportunities. And there's over 100,000 account holders, which includes, I need to go on the next slide, which includes applicants, assessors, and staff supporting and managing applications and awards. To date, we've got 491 opportunities that have already been launched on the funding service, and that means that we've received over 22,000 applications, and that's 14.7 billion pounds of funding that's been applied for. And just to give you an idea of scale, that means that in October alone, that was 26,000 individuals who actually went on and used the service, and we received 1,165 applications applying for 924 million pounds of funding. So lots of numbers to throw at you, but I just really wanted to give you an idea of the scale and how much the service is already being used. So with that, our aim is for the full application, assessment and award journey to be on the funding service, with TFS being the default service for award. And following the success of our recent pilots, we're going to continue to increase the number of awards being made on the funding service. So we expect that the number of new awards being made on JES is going to decrease over the coming months, and any live awards on JES will remain on JES. There's already over 200 awards in flight on the new funding service, and we've learned a lot from stakeholders who've been involved in those pilots, and we'll summarise some of the key pieces of feedback that have come through from them already. But I just wanted to point out that during this transition period, if you have got awards, which many of you I'm sure will, where you've got awards both on JES and TFS, you'll need to check whether the offer, the award offer, is in JES or TFS. So if you just log onto the platform, you'll be able to see a summary of all the awards that are in the funding service, and I don't need to explain to you how to use JES. So in those cases, you're still going to receive emails from both systems depending on where the award sits. And we do recognise that this may cause some inconvenience, but hopefully you have the information you need. And we appreciate your understanding during this phase as we sort of continue to make that transition. I'm now just going to give you a little bit of an update. Some of this, many of you, if you've already attended our previous webinars, will already be aware of, but just in case you're sort of quite new to the scene, the key thing to know is that to manage awards in the funding service, you'll need a TFS administrator account. So you'll have applicants and reviewers with sort of a general account, but to be an administrator and to manage awards, you need the admin account. Let's see. It's your organisation's responsibility to make sure that you manage who has the right permission and should have those account types, because obviously it gives you quite a lot of access to applications and award information. We've got the email address there for you to use, and when you do raise those requests, if you could put in the title Research Administrator Account and include as much of that information as possible about the individuals, then that will help to speed up the process. And if you haven't seen these already, we do have a number of other resources. So great that you're here today. We're going to run through a lot of what you're going to need to know. But if you want to go back and look at these sort of like little bite-sized videos about specific parts of the journey, or see the guidance on our website, as well as what's actually built into the actual service when you go through the process. We've got again links here and I'll put that link in the chat when I hand over presenting. We've got a new video on there as well that has only gone live recently, which is about how to raise a change request. So I'm going to hand over to Maz now. Thank you, Maz.
Thanks, Suze. Yes, I'm going to go through a little bit detail in and around managing awards on TFS. So what I'm going to do is try and keep this relatively brief. Obviously, the slides will be useful as a point to go back to, just to maximise the time that Tom can actually demo you what we're talking about here, because it will bring it to life, really. But if we'll jump to the next slide, Suze, please. So as a quick overview, in terms of what TFS administrators can do to manage awards, it can be very simply broken down into viewing and accepting the grant agreement, which is really the first point, which we'll go through in terms of how that looks and works. And then from that point, they can obviously submit start confirmations. You'll be able to access up-to-date award information at any point from the grant agreement onwards, and obviously link back to the original application as needed. View payments, so there's a live payment schedule on an individual award basis that you can keep up to date with in terms of what's due, paid and held. Create change requests. So in JES language, this would be grants maintenance requests, but effectively, if you need to enact a change against the award, whether that's change start date, suspend or resume award, or request an extension, all of those requests can be put through the service. And then from that point, you'll be able to view the history of any requests that have been made and how they've progressed through the service. And finally, submitting expenditure statements, and obviously viewing any expenditure statements that have been submitted previously if it's something that needed to go back on. So effectively, it's managing the life cycle of an award from the point of the grant agreement all the way up to closing that award with a final expenditure statement can be done within the service as part of this award functionality. So if we jump to the next slide, Suze. Things to, so there's a couple of key things to know about awards on TFS. As you'll see from this screenshot, they look and feel very different to JES, which hopefully a lot of you have already experienced within the service. So once an award has been authorised by UKRI, the Funding Service Administrator will receive an email with a link that can take you directly into the award, where you'll be able to view and accept grant agreement. So that's really the first point, that you'll be able to see an individual award. But equally, there is a page which you'll be able to use to manage the overall picture of the awards for the organisation, which will also kind of show you. So this is very much a screen on an individual award that you can see here on this slide. From here, there's a useful link back to the application and clarity on the application number, as well as the opportunity number and context. And what's key here to note is when the application is converted into an award within TFS, it will receive a new identifier, which you can sort of see up here. Obviously, the title will remain the same, but it's the ID will change. So that's something to note. But as you can see, we can relate it back to the application from this screen as well. If we jump to the next screen. Sorry, next slide. So in terms of the overarching process, so obviously, as you'll already be receiving, the project lead and the funding service administrator account holders will receive a system generated email to notify you of the outcome of an application. So this is effectively a positive decision or not, in terms of if the application is going to progress and be moved to the grant agreement stage. So for those that have had a positive decision, the next point of contact that you'll see is effectively the generation of the grant agreement, which has been authorised internally. So in JES language, that would be a grant offer letter. In TFS, we refer to it as a grant agreement. And effectively, this will be viewable to you, as I mentioned, via the link in an email, or even accessible through the service as soon as it's been authorised by UKRI. For awareness at this point, it's only visible to the award administrator from the holding organisation. So in terms of the applicants or the project lead and any collaborating organisations within the application, they wouldn't get visibility of this. So obviously it's up to the holding organisation to inform them of said information if needed. The grant agreement will be viewable in the service, and I'll show you next how different sections of anything that might have changed since the application will be highlighted, and there's a full audit trail of sort of history and being able to accept and reject that agreement, which we'll show you next. And one of the key things to note as well is in terms of start dates, if they need updating, that's something that can be done after the grant agreement has been accepted. It's not something that needs to hold up the process. So there's a process by which we can extend a start date window if needed, but we'll talk about start confirmation in one of the next slides. So in terms of changes in the award offer, as I mentioned, this is a small screenshot of effectively in the context of an award where you received that award with the grant agreement. You can look at the individual sections of that grant agreement and see if there's any changes that have taken place, and there'll be a little tag there to let you know if there's anything that might have changed since the application stage in terms of what the information that makes up the award has happened. So there's an example here, so you can fully access a full change history with visibility of what's changed, if anything, as part of receiving that grant agreement. We jump to the next slide. So this is a bit of an overview of where you would look to accept the grant agreement. So as you can see, you've kind of got a screen on the left here, which gives you the overview of what the award looks like. There's a specific section here where you can click into and see the grant agreement. That grant agreement is effectively made up of the different sections, and you can see the updated tags that I mentioned there. And on the grant agreement, you'll be able to view all the details there on one page. There's additional terms and conditions. Obviously, there'll be a link to the standard ones. On some of the older versions, the standard terms and conditions are fully displayed on the page, but one of our recent enhancements has been to kind of link them through a URL. So on the newer grant agreements that come through the service, you'll see that it's just linked off as part of a URL. And this is where you can obviously tick the acceptance of the grant agreement on behalf of the organisation. And then it kind of moves you through to the next stage, which if we jump through to the next slide, please, Suze. So this is effectively how you would then accept the grant agreement or even request any corrections. So if you've looked through the grant agreement and you've noticed that some information is no longer correct, so for example, maybe there's been a change of project partners, or there needs to be updates to named individuals that are listed as part of the team for the project, then here you could return the grant agreement for amendments to UKRI, where obviously that will be reviewed. And as I mentioned, you don't need to request a change to the start date at this stage. That can be done at the next stage in terms of extending the start date window. So that kind of gives you a bit of a stepped through process. If we jump to the next slide. This is a bit of a, again, sort of an overview. There's a little bit of a process map there for hopefully useful. So effectively, from the point of accepting the grant agreement, a start confirmation can then be submitted. So once you've accepted a grant agreement, start confirmation can be submitted on the service, and any deadlines that will be made clear. So the service is very visible in terms of timelines associated with what needs to happen. So unless there's a specific start date in the terms and conditions, a fixed start date, then the lead organisation has 10 days to respond to the award offer or the grant agreement offer that's made. And then from that point, there's a 6-month window to then start the award. That's actually a recent policy change that we're currently updating on the service. So this will be reflected very soon. So it was the standard 3 months. This has now moved to standard 6 months to start the award. And then there's obviously a 42 days to submit the start confirmation from that point as well. So effectively, you've got a clear view that as soon as the award offer is accepted, you can start the award as soon as the cost has been incurred. And obviously there's specific guidance in around what type of cost can be incurred as in order to start the award. And there's a latest start date, the rule that's kind of in the background that will display on a banner to let you clearly know how long you've got to start that award, which, as I mentioned, has moved from a standard 3 months to a 6-month time frame. And then that's how we kind of accept the award and start it. So if we move to the next slide. Suits. So as I mentioned, the journey's been updated. So there's a little example here. So what we do is to enable a start confirmation to be submitted from the earliest start date, which is effectively either the announced start date that has been worked from, or the date the grant agreement is issued, whichever is earliest. So for argument's sake, if today's the 1st of October and the award has an announced start date of the 1st of September, but the grant agreement was only issued on the 29th of September, the start confirmation can be submitted as soon as the grant agreement's been accepted, but with a start date of anything from the 1st of September, because that is effectively the earliest start date in that scenario. Whereas in the scenario that the announced start date is the 1st of November, but the grant agreement is issued on the 29th of September, then the start confirmation can be submitted as soon as the grant agreement has been accepted, but from the 29th of September, because that's the earlier of the 2 dates. But the main thing to bear in mind is obviously in terms of submitting a start confirmation, that's from the point cost and the relevant categories have been incurred. So that's the main kind of thing. But there's guidance in and around this, obviously, on the service to help the user. And as I mentioned, there's useful banners to kind of give you a time frame and around the latest start date. There is one thing to note, which is if there is a fixed start date, this would be highlighted in the opportunity document and also as an additional condition on the offer. So the service at the moment won't necessarily point you to a specific fixed start date. That's an enhancement that we will look to do in the future, though. Next slide, please, Suze. So another area that I mentioned that we can submit or kind of manage through the service is change requests. So as I mentioned, in old language, this is grant maintenance request. We see them as change requests under the service. So extending your start date window, which can be done as soon as the grant agreement has been accepted, as I mentioned, as well as suspending, resuming, and extending an award. All of these changes can be submitted through the service. So yeah, it's a case of just submitting the request through there, and then you'll be able to track the progress of that request. If there is a type of change request that isn't available on the service yet, there are a couple that we will be adding in as part of the enhancement work that we have planned. You can email the grant post awards team using that email address. So if there's anything that you've got queries in and around this area of the service that you need sort of help managing this space, then that email address will put you in touch with the right people. The other thing to note is when a transfer is requested, then the current ward will be suspended on the service and then reconciled before obviously it's transferred to the new award, which will then be in draft and follow the standard approval process. So transfer is something that can be done on service. It's just triggered internally at the moment. So that's something else that can be managed. Next slide, please, Suze. And then the other areas, obviously, in terms of closing an award, so submitting the final expenditure statement. Again, this is a functionality available on the service where effectively the award will trigger based on its end date, the FES, which will be opened to the award administrator to be able to fill out and then submit back to UKRI. So the final payment is obviously held until the FES is accepted by UKRI, as is standard process for the other as a standard process in JES as well. One of the key things to note is when a FES is completed and submitted, this comes straight to UKRI. So I think in some scenarios JES can be set up where there's a two-step process, but we've simplified this to effectively, as soon as the FES numbers are inputted and it's submitted, it comes straight to UKRI, and then that can sort of speed up the process, and we'll be able to review it or return it if there are any issues. And then once it's processed, obviously the final payments will be issued and the award will be closed. This is an area that we're actually we're doing some enhancements on at the moment. So we will look to do another webinar that's purely focused on the final expenditure statement functionality probably earlier next year. As I said, the functionality is available. It's just that we're looking to enhance it based on some feedback that we've received and make some improvements in this space. So I think if we jump to the next slide, we'll hand over to Tom for a demonstration. So as I mentioned, that's just a very brief overview of the functionality that's available in the service. You can refer back to the information in the slides, but what Tom's going to do now is kind of give you a proper demo to see this functionality in the service, what it looks like, how it works, which will bring it to life for you. So over to you, Tom.
Thanks, Maz. Afternoon, everyone. Hi, my name's Tom. So we'll be going through what TFS looks like in terms of the service, and a lot of what we're going to be seeing today is basically what Maz has just gone over, but from the actual product. So I'll just share my screen. 2 seconds. Okay, so this is the funding service. I'm currently logged in one of our test environments, and this is the University of Warwick. We can see all awards belonging to this organisation here. We can search awards by award reference or name and award holder. We can access any of those awards through the links on the left. And we've also got some kind of key data around that award there as well. We've also got the award status here, and we've got a column here, tasks. So I'll just talk a little bit around what a task is. So a task is essentially something that is required from, in this instance, the research organisation. Tasks can come in at different levels. So we've essentially got our priority tasks, which are red, our outstanding tasks, which are blue, and any ongoing tasks which require no intervention from a research organisation, they're yellow. So these yellow ones here, these are essentially requests that have been made on behalf of the research organisation, but you've yet to get a response from UKRI. So these are basically outstanding change requests. So they're open tasks, but there's nothing that's needed at the moment. The tasks are dynamic in terms of they'll update and change based on certain circumstances. For example, we've got 2 here, which are essentially the same task, which is that we're waiting for an offer response. So the offer response will come in as an open task and it'll remain blue. And then on 7 days, once the 7 days have passed, that then becomes an overdue response and that becomes red. So the task list will index based on the values of these tasks. So a red will always go to the top, then blue, then yellow. Before we move on and have a look at some of these, I'll just talk about some upcoming enhancements we have coming to these pages. So we have our new open search, which will be coming soon. That allows us to search beyond the page. So at the moment, if I was to search for an award, what that's going to do is essentially it's going to scrape this page and find any matches that relate to our search term. But with our new search functionality, that's going to allow us to search deeper. So you can search for for data that's not essentially in this table here to find the award you need. We also have the addition of filters coming as well. So the filters will allow you to search by the funder. It'll allow you to filter by status and also by task. So hopefully that'll allow you to kind of interrogate this page a little bit more and focus more on some actual tasks there as well. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go in and have a look at an offer. So if I click into this offer here, this will take us to the award offer overview page. So within the award offer overview page, we have our kind of high level summary data across the top here. And then we've got our sections of our award information. So the award information, as Mal mentioned earlier, basically builds up into the grant agreement. So the grant agreement is just a combination of all these sections above. We've got some updated tags here, so I'll go into a bit more detail what they are in a moment. And if we go into each part of the section, we can see the data that was input as part of the application. And we can also see, in this instance, we've got a little tile down here, which is change history. So we've got, for this section, we've got award details have been updated. We can open the reason for change. And in this instance, we can see that the previous start date has changed and the new start date is here. So the new start date will appear up here as the correct data, but this is just giving some transparency and some kind of history of the things have changed, because we know there can be a gap between an application being submitted and an award offer being made. So this hopefully will help understand what's changed and when it's changed, and of course why it's changed. Currently within these change history little tiles, there is some work internally to improve this kind of this feature of changing data within an award. So some instances you might see there is a change history, but it might say no change. Now that obviously isn't really logical at the moment, and we're aware of that, and we're in the future we will make changes. So when we see these tags have updated, you can be assured that there's a reason for them being there, and that'll communicate why that change has been made. In all our sections, we did look at our team section. We can look at resource and costs. Again, this information is pulled over from the application. We can see our payment schedule here. So all these are due payments. So the payment schedule will update in real time. So these are all due payments because this is a new award. But if you were to visit this award in a year's time, obviously the status of some of these will change. So they can be at statuses such as due, held, paid, or in some cases cancelled, depending on the status of the award. We can look at project partners. Again, this information is pulled over from the application. We can see that this award has no project partners, but if they were, they would appear here. And the terms and conditions. So as Maz pointed out earlier, the standard terms and conditions, they're available through a link here. This is a test environment, so that link doesn't work. But essentially, they'll link through to the UKRI website where we can see the latest version of those T's and C's. Any additional terms and conditions, which might be bespoke to the awards, include stuff like fixed start dates or research terms and conditions, will be here in a read format. So they'll be in the HTML as readable text. And what we do then is, with all that information, we compile it into the grant agreement. So as previously said, that will all compile into a single document here. We've got some sticky links on the side that take us down to each section. And we've also got the ability to print the page as well, where we can save as a PDF or print. You'll need to tick the checkbox here just to confirm that the terms and conditions are understood on behalf of the RO, and then we can save and return, and then that will give us our complete tag next to our grant agreement. In response to the award offer, we can accept the award or we can return for amendments. In the case we return for amendments, I'll just quickly show what this does. So if we click in there, we can return for amendments, and then we have a box to leave a reason as to why we're rejecting this offer. So what that does then, that'll go back into the UKRI internal work queue with the reason for why the award has been rejected, and any notes as to how that can be corrected. It'll then go back through the process internally of being reissued and sent back out to the research organization. But for this demo, we'll assume everything is great and we'll accept. So this is a common pattern throughout the funding service when there is an action that is going to kind of be an important milestone and that is kind of final. So this is just what we call a kind of speed bump page. So we just play back the task which you're doing and the outcome of that. So we're going to go through and just accept. What we'll notice now is the award offer has been accepted and the award status here is changed to announced. Let's quickly page. So we have some information here around the kind of start window. So this banner here is telling us that we must tell us we started the award by the 3rd of April, and then we got a countdown in days. So there's it's common within the service to find signals like this, giving some feedback on when certain tasks are due by. But within this award now, we could go in and essentially start this award. What I will do is quickly demo the feature of a change request. So if I click into a change request, this will be the change request, what we call the change request landing page. And in here, we can see there are no open or previous change requests. So if there's ever been any change requests that have been created in the past or are ongoing, they'll appear within this page, and that'll be a continuing log of any change requests, past or present, with that award. If we go in and create a new change request, we can come through here, and in this instance, we can change the start date. So the change requests which are available for a given award are based on the status of that award. So being as this award is in a state of announced, the only type of change request we would accept here would be a change to the start date. So if I click through, sorry, I didn't, it's a good a good demo of the validation we've also got in the system. But I'll click that and go through. And this is a change to start date form. So all that kind of change requests follow a similar pattern. So the data we require to make a decision on a type of change request will vary, but the kind of steps you go through of raising it, submitting it, and the outcome of that, they're all very, very kind of consistent. We always play back the data that is important in the change. So we can see the current start date is here, and the requested start date we capture here and here, and we give a reason for change as well. So that just allows us to give a bit more context to the change we're making. I won't go ahead and submit this change request. What I'll do is I'll go back and we'll look at a different award, and we can raise a change request for one of them. So if I go back to the awards page, what we can do now is let's go in with our active award now. So okay, so if I go into another award, so if we look in this one, so this is an active award. And what we'll do is we'll go and have a look at some change requests when the award is in a state of active. This is an example of a change request page. We've had a previous change that has been accepted. So I'll show you what that looks like now. We can go in so we can see the data that was captured and submitted to UKRI. So that'll always be available. And then we can see the response from UKRI here as well. So we can see that the change request was accepted by UKRI and on the date as well. What we also got is the history log of who submitted the change request. So again, that'll always be available. But what we'll do for this change is we'll go in and we'll create another change request. We'll go in and create a suspension request. And this is another example of a change request form, this time being the suspension. So we've got some guidance along the top, some reasons as to why we would possibly accept or reject change request. And also we've also got a link to the grant agreement here as well. So we've always got a link to the T's and C's. We can put in a requested suspension date. So if we put in today, and the expected resumption date. So if we put in the 1st 2025, and we'll put in a reason for suspension as equipment is currently unavailable. Again, we've got a justification to give some context as to why we are asking for this. So we'll just give some more. And once we're happy with our change request, we can then check and submit. And then this plays back the data we've input on that request as well. So this is just a kind of check your answers page, so we can just make sure for a final time that everything is correct, and then we can submit the change request. Again, this is a common pattern throughout the service. So whenever there is a kind of submission from an RO, so you've got that kind of reassurance that it was successful, you'll get your notification up here. And we can see that that suspension request now has gone in to a state of submitted. Again, you can go in and we can check on the status of that. We can check the details that were submitted, and we've got some guidance around what will happen next. In this instance, you'll be notified of the decision through an email. So that email will go out to all those with RO accounts, and that will also appear now if we go back to our awards page. Here we go. We can see that we have our suspension request there as well. So with a suspension request, the date given for the expected resumption will also flag in the system when the award is due to resume. And that will appear as just a notification within the system, as well as a gentle reminder that the date given on the request of a suspension is nearing. Okay, so that concludes the demo for today. There's further kind of journeys available, which we'll cover again, which is around the close process, which includes the final expenditure statement, how they would be submitted, and then reviewed, and also close out an award on that. But yeah, that's the end of the demo. So thank you very much. I think I'll pass them back to Suze.
Thanks, Tom. If you could stop sharing the screen, that was great. Thank you. I'm going to share slides again, and actually Maz is going to talk about feedback. Thank you, Maz.
No worries, Suze. Here come the slides. So in terms of feedback, obviously, as Suze mentioned at the start, we've had over 200 awards now set up on the service. So they're in various kind of states of either being prepared by UKRI before they come to, before they're authorised to be sent to the ROs, or indeed they are in an announced state where effectively the grant agreement's been accepted and we're waiting for them to start. And then a series of them are already in an active state where they've obviously started and they're receiving their quarterly payments as you might expect. And the first few of our awards are going through are very soon going through the FES cycle, which will be closing them off on the service. Now that they've reached the end of their life cycle. So in terms of that's obviously very importantly provided us with some feedback, both from users that are now using the service in live, and as well as some of the research that we've done, just sort of, going through prototypes and demos, etc. Because as part of our design cycle, it's a constant series of updating and enhancing what we've got. So in terms of what we learned so far, overall returning offers for amendment was a very positive, quick and seamless experience for staff compared to JES. One opportunity for us to improve is to provide more guidance on what we expect after ROs staff submit something to UKRI, just to give a bit more of a context in around the time the process will take, and what they can do in the meantime, if they have obviously submitted something back for amendment. So this is something that we'll look to provide an extra context and guidance on, either via the service, well, probably via the service and or extra content, as Suze's related, that there's a series of different areas that you can find information on the service on. So the process of starting a award and submitting a change request was reported as more intuitive and smoother. Obviously that's what Tom's just demoed for you. We've had feedback where we want more information on the award dashboard to sort filter by status, task and task date. So this is something that is coming imminently. So we've got this work is in development now. So hopefully just the other side of Christmas, we'll be able to see that new kind of functionality on to obviously manage a much larger number of awards rather than just having sort of a bog standard page with a basic filter, a basic search. You'll be able to kind of have a much more intuitive page where you can really drill down and search and filter by exactly what you want to see, which will help sort of the management of a much larger number of awards. So that is coming imminently. Improvements to the email notifications, so including things like department or project lead. So that's an area that we're looking at actively to see where we can augment some of those email notifications to give a bit more context. So that's something that we're actively looking at. Ability to include the organisation reference is something that we are considering for the future. We're doing a little bit more research in terms of sort of where that's going to add value and where we might be able to fit it into the service for users. And in terms of continuing to run webinars to raise awareness and provide guidance, that's obviously something we're doing today and will continue. So as we update the service, enhance the service and see much higher volume of awards going through the service, that interaction where we're getting feedback and providing more guidance and understanding of how everything's working will continue. So I think that kind of loops up a lot of the feedback. So Suze, yeah, I'll hand back to you for this one.
Lovely, thank you. Oh, let me turn my video on. There we go, here I am. So we have a number of targeted feedback surveys that we send out. We send emails out to users at specific points in the journey. So if someone has submitted an application or submitted a review, in particular is a new survey, because obviously awards is quite new on the new funding service. So we've got a specific survey. So when you are going in and starting to manage and accept and start awards or create change requests, we'd really love to hear your feedback. It's a really great opportunity, as Maz was just demonstrating on the previous slide, for us to make sure things are working how we intended and what else we would need to prioritise for future builds and enhancements. So I'll put the link in the chat in a moment, but if you've got a phone handy, you can take a quick picture of the QR code and that should take you straight to that feedback survey as well. But I appreciate not many of you will have actually gone through the journey just as yet. So anyway, you've got it if you need it. And then just before we get to the Q&A, I just wanted to highlight support routes to you. So as always, our help desk is there, our trusty help desk. So there's an email and a phone number for you to contact them. If it's non-technical questions relating to, say, a specific opportunity, then there'll be a council contact listed in the opportunity, which you can go to directly for that. And if it's a query relating to a change request in particular, please do use the grants post award at funding.ukri.org email address. But if you can't remember that, you can still use the help desk and obviously they'll forward it on to the right team. I just wanted to highlight as well, as we're almost we're starting to approach the festive period. I've certainly seen a few Christmas decorations already start to pop up around in the houses near me. But looking forward to that period, we wanted to highlight that the help desk will be closed from 5 p.m. on the 23rd of December and it will reopen at 8:30 a.m. on the 2nd of January. And of course, over that period, we won't be expecting reviews to be, if the system has automatically set a review and those can't be updated and it falls over that sort of holiday period, we're obviously not expecting them. to fall in that period, so it will be extended, and there will be a communication going out on that shortly, and we'll obviously try and avoid anyone getting a request to put in their applicant response over that period as well. So just wanted to note those, and I'm now gonna ask my fellow panelists to put their videos on, and we have Jordan behind the scenes who has been collecting questions. And which is our first question, Jordan?
Thanks, Susan. Good afternoon, everyone. As Suze mentioned, my name's Jordan, and I'll be taking you through the Q&A today. So first of all, thanks to everyone for all the questions that you posed. There's been quite a few. So we're going to take you through a few of those now. So Maz, I'm going to come to you for the first question, if that's okay. So please, how do we reconcile the phrases used in standard terms and conditions with the new grant agreement process? For example, the question quotes RG 4.3, which is to do with expenditure being incurred and subsequently charged to the grant from either the start date of the grant or the date that the offer was issued on. It continues to say that we no longer receive offer letters, so please, which date should we be using here? Award prepared or award authorized or something else?
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's a good question. So in terms of the I guess the grant agreement and the offer letter, that's a good kind of example where effectively it's kind of the same purpose, but we've used new language in terms of the new service. So our policy team are regularly going through and trying to ensure that the terms and conditions are reflective of both services, because we're working obviously with them jointly at the moment. So we do still have JERS live with the bulk of the awards on there. TFS is now live and working obviously in the awards space, and the volumes there are increasing quite dramatically now in the forthcoming months. So policy are actively going through and ensuring that the terms and conditions reflect both services. That's a prime example where we can feedback to policy that we might need a slight tweak to that term to reflect both. In that specific term, it is the same on one item, but what we can do is just ensure that if there's anything else that comes up, then we'll feed that back to policy to make sure the terms and conditions can be updated. But it is something they're actively working through to make sure that they are reflective of both services.
Great. Thanks, Matt. I'll stay with you for the next couple of questions, if that's okay. So next one, what can PIs do and see when their award is live? It looks like all requests are managed by the organisation. The PI can't see their award at all. Yeah, sorry. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So that's correct. So at the moment, we've got access for the research organisation. So the users under that kind of organisation can see and actively do everything in the award space. The plan in the future is absolutely to kind of give at least a read-only view, or even kind of relevant access for PIs or the lead. But yeah, at the moment, it's just the research organisation that has access to the award space and manages kind of the requests in and out of here. So at the point where we kind of will be able to put PIs and give them an access to the award, obviously that will be reflective of what they can or can't do in terms of this space.
Great, thank you, Maz. So next question, if terms and conditions changed throughout ongoing projects, will we be notified, and will these changes be reflected on the terms and conditions part of the award management page?
Yeah, so the plan is to kind of be able to use the service to kind of notify of any major changes to terms and conditions. So that's something that we've kind of anticipate in the terms of the service. So obviously, when you're looking at an award, you can always refer back to that terms and conditions page, and that will kind of ensure that you know which sort of relevant terms that you've actually agreed to. And then as they update, as we have a standard update terms and conditions, then that can be reflected, and the plan is to reflect that within the service.
Fantastic. Thank you, Matt. Renee, I'll come to you for the next few questions, if that's okay. So first up, have you considered or are you planning to bring in different admin group levels? So an admin group for awards could be separate to the regular admin group. At the moment, our contracts team are having to receive all emails from the admin group, but the only function they perform in TFS is the award acceptance.
Yeah, thank you. It's a very good question. It will be in future work that we will be looking at what we call the research office permissions and the ability for research officers to set their own permissions, which would likely be looking at if you wanted to make a divide between a pre-award and post-award That work is currently in user research and design. So we don't have like a design to show you yet, because we're currently looking into how best to design this. And we can present that at a future date. But yes, that is very much in planned for near future delivery.
Great, thank you, Renee. Next question. The admin account allows access to all application submissions for the whole institute. We cannot see access level access is we cannot see access level access is supported in the portal for staff carrying out specific tasks. This creates issues for mass email notifications and multiple people accessing private information, peer review comments, application, for example. Is there a solution to be able to control access to various parts of the portal as it was with JES?
Yeah, so that is very much related to the previous question. We appreciate the pain of getting the many notifications and at the moment not to have a division of who can see what. So part of that permissions work will look into this, which would also potentially route which notifications go where. As part of that. So yeah, very much that is currently what we're actively looking at designing a solution for.
Great, thank you, Renee. Maz, coming back to, sorry, we do have one more with you, Renee, apologies. We have understood from previous webinars that local admins in the academic departments would soon be getting edit rights to assist the PI with the application. For example, before it is sent to the research office. Could you please confirm when this functionality will be added?
So that is already there. You should be able, once an applicant has started, on behalf of your organization, has started an application, you should be able to see that application and click into it and be able to collaborate, to make edits. If, for example, before the applicant sends it to you to officially approve for submission, you are able as a research office to complete the resources and cost section if that is your process, or in any other section that it might be relevant for you to make edits as part of an admin team. So yes, you should already be able to do that. If you've got trouble accessing this for any reason, please raise with our help desk and we can help you further.
Fantastic. Thank you, Renee. Maz, coming back to you for the next couple. So will we be able to see full applications in this award management side of TFS, or is it only the start/end dates and project summary?
Yeah, so yeah, there's a link to the application from the award page, so you can refer back to the full detail of the application. And what we do is we pull through from the application any key information that we want to see in the grant agreement or on the award to persist going forward. So start dates and summary is a relevant one. That's kind of key information once it gets converted into award or a grant. But you can still access the full application using the link from that page if you want to refer back to anything at any point during the life cycle of award.
Great. Thank you, Maz. Staying with you for the next one. So is there any functionality to help filter, organize, sort, etc. Award processing in TFS as when we have more, this will get cumbersome?
Yeah, so I think we've probably covered that one off in terms of we received that feedback and we've actually got that piece of work in development now. So that's something that should be visible and accessible for everyone, hopefully just after Christmas time. So yeah, you'll be able to filter, search and everything to be able to kind of manage a large volume of awards, which is obviously what we're now anticipating going forward.
Fantastic. Thanks, Matt. Tom, I'm going to come to you for the next one, if that's okay. So is there a way of sorting awards, for example, by end date, status, or task type?
Yeah, so following what Maz said, then that planned enhancement along the awards page that will include column sort on the columns as well. So it'll preload with the standard sort, which is on the task, but then within each column you can sort by award name, holder, funder, start date, end date, status, task received, which will be an additional column, and the task itself. So you should get a lot of control over that list and how you want to view it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tom. And then Maz, coming back to you, who is responsible for submitting change requests? Is this something that the grant holder does, or is it something that the award management team does? If the grant holder can submit, is there an approval step?
So it's the award management team. So it's purely on the RO side. So the award administrators that can submit change requests. So because the PIs don't have access to this part of the service yet, they obviously can't access it. And this is a prime example of when we look to give them access. This is the type of kind of process that we'll work through to work out exactly how it should work in terms of whether we give them that ability, and then it has to have an approval step with the RO, or whether they have just view only access and the ROs are happy to manage it. So that's part of kind of the design piece once we get to the area where we look to add PI access into this part of the service.
Fantastic. Thank you, Maz. Aware of time, so I'm going to hand back to Sue shortly, but thank you everyone for your questions. We've got a log of all these and we'll aim to get these answers as soon as possible offline. So Sue, hand it back to you.
Thank you. Yes, so we were able to answer quite a lot of the questions, typed in the answers as well. So if you did raise some, then please do. And there was a lot of overlap with a lot of questions as well. So it might be that we already typed an answer, we just haven't spoken to it at the end. So we'll distribute a write-up of the Q&A following this and give out the slides and the recording as well. So please do look out for those. Just wanted to say thank you to the team who presented today and all the people sort of behind the scenes, and for you all for attending and asking lots of great questions. So, and as Maz mentioned earlier, we will do another webinar specifically around award and final expenditure statements, probably in the new year. So once we've set a date for that, we'll promote it again in the same way that we did this one. Thank you all, and we'll see you again soon.
If you would like to view more information about the funding service, then view our website www.ukri.org, as seen on screen here. For any queries or feedback, please contact the Funding Service Help Desk by emailing support@funding-service.ukri.org, or by contacting the TFS Help Desk at 01793 547 490.